And welcome back to Tech Tuesday. I'm Steve Leahy in his creaky chair. I got a new creaky chair. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I wanted to get into this whole reduction thing again. This is a huge question, comes up all the time, and it comes up with all the time from everyone, really. And it's how to reduce the paints and how to get them to flow and all that fun stuff. There are a couple things that I do that I just thought I'd touch on to kind of give you an idea, and also some pitfalls and some things to watch out with. So paint is great. I use the Wicked colors from Createx. Works really, really well. It is a fairly thick paint though. It's designed to be this way because it's supposed to be very versatile. So they don't want to make it ultra thin. They don't want to make it super thick. They want it somewhere in the middle so that we can adjust this to whatever we're working on. And that's a fantastic thing. To give you an example, I could run this color of Wicked right through a t-shirt brush and paint t-shirts with it just the way it is, and it works out great. If this stuff was super thin, then I wouldn't be able to do that. So that's why this stuff comes kind of in the middle of the line as far as thickness and how it sprays. For me, I use a lot of really, really small airbrushes, real small nozzled and needle detailed airbrushes, and they don't like thick paint, so I need to reduce this. So that's the biggest question that you get all the time, is how much do you reduce your paint? So this is a question that is directly related not so much to the paint as to the airbrush that you're using. If you're using an airbrush like this, which is the Micron B, this has an extremely small needle and nozzle in it. Think of a teeny weeny little coffee stirrer like straw. That's what this brush is like. So to try to jam really thick paint through this is really impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but the brush just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So that's why we need real thin paint with something like this. If we have a bigger brush, like this big old tritium with the 0.7 millimeter nozzle, having really, really super thin paint in this, as I would with this, it would just spray all over the place. It would be a mess. It would just come out. Think of this like a fire hose. So if this is like a coffee stirrer, this is huge. This is a 0.7 millimeter opening in this, and it even has a fan cap on it. So this is a really heavy duty. This is designed to spray really thick stuff. So that's why there is no standard answer to how much should I reduce my paint. It really depends on the brush you're using. So that next time you want to ask someone how much reduction should be in your paint, make sure they know what kind of airbrush you're using, and that will really help. So I'll give you an example or a couple of examples of how I would reduce for each brush. So for this brush here, again, this is my super detail brush. When I'm dealing with the opaque white and black, right here, this stuff only needs reduction. It doesn't need anything else, and I'll get to that in a second. So I can reduce this stuff, the black and the white, as high as, generally what I use for super detail in this, you could just barely read it, is 1 to 10. So it's 1 part paint to 10 parts reducer. It's massively over reduced for what they recommend. They really recommend a reduction anywhere from 10 to 15% right out of the bottle. But the way I work, I need to really, really, really reduce it. So that's what I end up doing, and that's what I get. So if I told you my reduction was 1 part paint to 10 parts reducer, and you had a bigger brush, like, I don't know, like the Extreme Patriot here, the 105, this is a 0.3 millimeter nozzle. If I told you 1 to 10 in this brush, or to use 1 to 10 and you use this brush, again, the paint's going to come out really fast. It's just going to come out almost uncontrollably like a mist. It'll just flood very frequently and just be a mess. So while I can get great detail out of that reduction with this brush I would want to keep this much, much thicker, more closer to the original viscosity that it was. Maybe reduce it 10% or 20%, and you'll find then this brush works fantastic. Really, really close to what a super like specific detail brush will be. So again, what I want to stress is it's not just a flat reduction rate for the paint to get it to work. It's specific to the airbrush. To give you another example, if I had a brush like the Eclipse BCS, I could get a tremendous amount of detail out of this brush with the paint only slightly reduced, if not even reduced, with this brush. However, again, with a big 0.5 millimeter nozzle in this brush, if I put 1 to 10, if If I put this stuff in here, it's just going to blast out uncontrollably. It would be a mess. So hopefully that starts to make sense for you, that it's really, really, really about the airbrush more than the paint itself. Some paints like the new opaque line has a great binder in it that doesn't need any additives other than the reducer. You just reduce it and go. Other paints like the Wicked line need a little bit of help. If you just simply reduce this, it tends to get grainy and doesn't really tend to spray very well. To restore that smoothness that the paint has when you have it at the right reduction, you can add a little bit of UVLS gloss to it. The nice thing is you can add as much gloss as you want to it, and that'll allow you to really smooth this paint out. And that's just experiment. You know, you just put a little bit of gloss in it and see how it works. You reduce it a little bit, and it's a balance. So what the gloss will do, the UVLS, is it'll restore this ability to the paint to stick, which is really nice. It'll also smooth it out again. It'll make these difficult colors to spray, the rubbery ones like orange and burnt umber and green and things like that. It'll just make them spray a lot smoother as well, because you're kind of spreading out the pigment a little bit in this clear gloss additive, which is great. So that's it. Okay. So I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it short. I don't want to get too far into it. I just want to give you the basics, and I hope that really does do that. So a reducer, again, you're reducing it for your airbrush, not necessarily for the paint, and you'll get a feel the more you use your airbrush. You'll get a feel for what viscosity the paint needs to be really to have it work correctly. So that's kind of how you deal with the reduction. Again, if you have to over reduce, it's really nice to add a clear binder back into it. In this case, I use UVLS gloss, but you can use any transparent base from any paint line will do the same thing for that paint line. So that's important too. All right. If you have any questions, I know I missed a lot. I know I glossed over a lot, but I wanted to give you the basics just to kind of keep in your head about that. Reduction goes with airbrushing, or with the airbrush, not so much the paint. I want that to really be in the front of your head when you're working with reducing paint. All right, so any questions? I know there will probably be a few, and I love that. Just drop them in the comments below. Again, if you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing and clicking that bell icon as well. And if you know someone who can use this information, please pass it on. That'd be great. Just share it. All right, for Steve Leahy and Tech Tuesday, you guys are the best, and I hope you have success in your reductions, and I will catch you next time.